Hello, and welcome to episode 13. 14 of the White Lightning podcast. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler, as always. I am joined today by two guests. We're going to go back to a three-person one, and I'm joined by Eric and Mark. What's up, guys? What's going on?
What's up?
What's up?
These guys are like a second family. Know these guys for a long time. Their son Ethan and I went to school together. And they're a football family. They're a Steelers family. I'm a Browns family. I've gotten to very heated debates with them. A lot of name calling. Maybe stormed out of a house here and there.
Didn't I kick you out one night?
Yep.
Mark and I had a Big Ben. Who is better, Big Ben or Baker Mayfield? After Baker had the rookie year and not suitable for work. Name calling was said, but I love it. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of sports, right there, man. That's why you do it. So
that's why, exactly.
We've gotten in way too many heated arguments for like just everything, honestly.
I know it's been good. Yeah. It's been good. And I'm excited to do many more this summer. And right now, we're going to talk about the NFL again today. With Christian Howie, about a week ago, I did the risers, the fallers, the hot takes. We're going to kind of go back to that again. We're going to give a riser, a faller, and a hot take. And I think these guys will have some interesting takes. But first, I want to get your guys' points about the NBA. Mark, I know you had a couple thoughts about how the NBA Finals played out. And before we get in the NFL, I would like to hear that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so one of my first takes that was out there, especially, I guess you could put it as a, I'm a Steelers fan, first of all, and you know how we are. We draft well, right? And when I looked at this year with the NBA playoffs, and let's just say even last year too, right? So the Denver Nuggets, they practically drafted that team. They didn't have to go out. They didn't have to say, oh my God, what's the big key free agent? They trusted the process. And I really wish we could get back into that. Like, it's okay to have a losing season. It's okay to lose. It's okay to go out there and not win, respect the tough times. And the Denver Nuggets are a prime example. I mean, look at the Warriors. The Warriors, they drafted Steph. They drafted Clay. They drafted, Draymond Green. Now, unfortunately, they had to go out and sign, Kevin Durant so they could take down the King. But, really past that, if you look at – I think the Warriors are going to make a run. And let's be real. I think the Nuggets are going to stick with the plan. I mean, they're locked in. They drafted Porter, too. They drafted Jamal Murray. They drafted Joker, second round, by the way. I mean, steal. So, for some NBA fans, they were just hating, this just isn't exciting. There's no hype. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? This is how you build a family. This is how, you start a franchise. This is what you do. And guys like me, I'm okay with that. I am totally fine. Was it weird not seeing LeBron in there or Steph, but it has to be great for the NBA. That's just my take. And it seems like, today everybody just wants a win now instead of planning for the future. So, I'm hoping, some like the Cavs. I mean, besides getting Donovan Mitchell but we started with Garland. We're going to build we're going to build around him. Mobley, we're going to build around him. Hopefully, we get the draft right. What is that, next week or whatever?
Right. Right.
So that was my take. Whenever I got done, I'm like, holy crap, they actually built this team. They're actually built for success now. There was an owner that said, okay, we're going to trust the process. That's fine. That's what you're supposed to do. That's just, so that was my biggest take, from this year's NBA playoffs and the NBA championship. These guys built this team. These guys are set up for success now. And let's hope, sports are taken just a little bit differently, by drafting. It can be done. We don't need to, block our schedules whenever July gets here and it's free agency and, who's going here, who's going there. Let's focus on the draft and then maybe work around that. So that was one of my thoughts of it.
No, I totally agree. It's so refreshing. It really is. That's the big word for me. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this in previous episodes. For the last 10 years, it was kind of like who has the most stars, who can hit the most threes. KD joined the Warriors because they were already good. It's like, okay, who can I ring chase with? I totally agree. I think it's great for the sport because there's so much parity. And I mentioned last episode, you have to actually build a roster now. You know, how many teams like the Warriors, I'll still stand on this. I don't think they had a good bench when they had KD. They didn't have a true center. You know, Clay and KD and Draymond are, you know, all-time defenders, but they could have some holes defensively like Curry. Looney was still like not very polished. But ultimately, the point is the NBA is going in a great direction because they're going to see what the Nuggets did and said, okay, all right, we maybe trading for a superstar isn't the best move. Let's build through the draft in a week, like what you said. Let's add free agency, add some couple bench pieces. Let's give this some time. I mean, I remember the Nuggets at one point after they hired Michael Malone, they missed the playoffs 3 straight years. Jamal Murray 2 years ago tore his ACL, and all the stories were like he was crying. He didn't know if he was going to get traded. 25 other teams probably would have said, see ya, man. We want to win now. We're going to get desperate, and we're going to go make a move. But you're absolutely right. It's refreshing. You actually have to build a roster now. You can't have holes. You have to be well coached. It's great for the sport. It's absolutely great for the sport.
And honestly, I think that's why I got out of college basketball for a while. Like, I didn't really watch college basketball because I was like, you know, the NBA isn't about that. The NBA is, you know, they just want to get the superstars and, you know, build these like big three and stuff like that. But now, you know, if they start going back to the draft and, you know, some of these guys are coming out and they're actually building around the team and making an impact on the team. Oh, just think the impact that could have on college basketball too.
Right.
Because you're like, all right, who's this? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? You know, there's just exciting whenever you can put those pieces in there. So, yeah, I'm all about that, man. I freaking love it.
Oh, it's great for the sport. And it's funny. Teams are kind of trying to pull off the super team, and it's not working. Look at the Nets dumpster fire. That was Harden, Kyrie, and KD. The Suns, who I actually love going in the playoffs, you're like, oh, okay, you can't just get away with not having a bench or, you know, or maybe being a little injury plagued. You know, Lakers a little bit. Okay, let's build around LeBron AD. They still have some holes they need to fill, you know? So I totally agree. I mean, Eric, what do you think about that? Any thoughts about that?
I think it all comes down to coaching, in my personal opinion, because if you look at the past finals like matchups, they've all been 2 great coaches. I mean, this one was Spoelstra, who is arguably maybe a top 5 coach all time, and Michael Malone is probably also another top 3 coach at the moment right now. But like, I used to hate the NBA because also when the whole Kevin Durant thing started and the Cavs were making their way up whenever we won our first ring. And then Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, and then it was just like, for that 3 years, I mean, the Warriors rolled the league, obviously. But like, I'm so glad that the NBA has changed. And if you look at a team like the Heat, I mean, I'm sorry, I've never been a fan of the Heat, but Jimmy Butler, he's changed my whole opinion on him. I never was a fan of him, but they just have the pieces. But I feel like the Heat are missing that one, like I was talking my dad earlier about it all, and he said they're like one Kyrie away from being a finals team.
Right. Right.
Like, I also feel like the Heat also lost that finals because, like, the Jokic, I mean, he's incredible, dude. Like, he's insane. And like, the Nuggets, they're set up for maybe 1 or 2 more finals because they have Jokic locked up, they have Murray locked up, and they have all these guys that they have a good bench. Yeah, I mean, they have a great future, and you can tell the NBA is just going to the right, like, towards success and everything. And it's also, I seen another stat. They haven't, the last like finals winners, it's been 5 different teams, and like that's been the first time since like 1990, since there's been 5 different teams in 5 years to win a championship, not just the Warriors for 3 years and the Cavs. It's just been all different teams. I feel like it's great to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. The dog barking kind of, but no, I'm just playing.
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. No, I totally agree. Like, it's funny. Like, when the Cavs and Warriors had those battles, the ratings were really good. People in Cleveland loved it. People in Golden State and California loved it. But like what Mark mentioned earlier, it's not really good for the landscape of the NBA.
Right.
You know, you went from 5-10 years ago saying there's probably only 3 teams that can win to now going into the next year. I think you can make an argument maybe 7-8 teams can win the whole thing. You know, obviously the Nuggets will really emerge and teams like the Bucks and, you know, but it's perfect for the NBA. There's parity again. You're going back to how teams are supposed to be formed, and I love it. I really, truly do.
It's truly great.
Yeah. No, you make great points, man. I love it. I love it. And I totally agree about your NBA stuff.
Yep.
But the NBA is over now. And I know we're going to have the draft. I know free agency is in July. I'm excited to talk about that. But let's get to the points, man. Let's get to football. Let's get to something that we all disagree on. And it's all entertaining, right? Am I right?
Best time of the year soon.
I know. And before you know it, we're going to have a couple football episodes. And by August, we'll be talking about the season starting.
I can't wait.
I mentioned earlier in the episode, we're going to give a riser, a fall, and a hot take. Okay? And I'm going to start off as the host. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to start with my riser.
That's
For
cool.
sure.
A riser for me, a clear riser for me, was the New York Jets. And I don't even think it's ballsy or it's a hot take for me to say that. I mean, did any team in football this offseason make a bigger leap at the most important position in football than the Jets did? I mean, we're talking about going from, they had a rotation of Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White. And I remember in the damn Jaguars game, they put their damn tight end to throw some passes. I don't know if you guys remember that or not.
I seen that.
And you go to Aaron Rodgers. And listen, I get that he had a down year last year. But his down year last year is 100 times greater than any peak that the Jets quarterbacks in the past could give you. You know what I mean? So, and I saw a really good point as well. You're getting a more motivated Aaron Rodgers. This might be the most motivated he has been since since the Jordan Love stuff happened a couple years ago. And I just love that for them. Obviously, that's the first big thing that they did. They have a decent wide receiving core. I mean, Garrett Wilson, who was, outstanding, incredible offensive rookie of the year, I believe, right? You add Hardman, Cobb is his boy. So they have a very solid and deep receiving core. I wasn't in love with their draft, really, but I didn't think they really had any glaring holes except for quarterback. Their defense was great last year. Sauce is incredible. Quinn Williams is incredible. But again, they addressed the most important position in the league better than any other team did. And this is a team that won 7 games last year without a quarterback. So Is it crazy to believe that they're going to be a 10-11 win football team? And let's look at their division this offseason. The Bills have been everything but out of the news. Your entire feed is littered with the Bills. I don't even know if their star wide receiver Diggs wants to be there. He's not showing up to camp. I know he showed up yesterday. They just got embarrassed on their home field 4 months ago. They still can't get the running back situation figured out. They can't develop a wide receiver too. Their defense just got slashed by the Bengals again in the second round 4 months ago. And I thought this was really interesting too. Their division, the top 5 hardest schedules in football, their division has 3 of them. The Patriots has the hardest schedule. The Dolphins have the 3rd hardest schedule, and the Bills have the 4th hardest schedule. So I just love it, man. I really do. We're talking about a team that was one of the worst offenses in football, and you get an all-time grade. If he's even somewhat close to how he was in his MVP form, they're a 10-11 win football team. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Eric.
I actually do not have the Jets going insane this year because I feel like they're still a really young group. And I also am not a personal fan of Robert Saleh. I don't feel like he's done enough in the league yet to prove to me that he can coach a elite football team. Yeah, they have Aaron Rodgers now, which I still think they'll be not a 7-win team, but I think they'll be a maybe 9 to 10-win team, which in the AFC might not get you in the playoffs.
Right.
Because the AFC is so stacked. Their defense is really good, but Yeah, I just don't feel like they have the total superstar power yet to compete with these high-powered offenses, and I just I don't think they have it yet.
I'll
Yeah, Mark, what do you think?
yeah, I'll elaborate on this for a minute. I'm going to tell you what I personally loved it, and especially their coach. Their coach is everything what like a Pittsburgh Steeler would do, right? We go defense. We're going to build that defense up, and Salah's going to who they bring in the offensive coordinator that works with Rodgers.
They actually brought in
Hackett.
Hackett, who was a dumpster fire
Hackett.
in the Broncos, but he is Rodgers' boy. So
Yeah, that's his boys. So I can guarantee you this house going to go. Salah's going to go. Look, you guys go get on the same page. You make sure that you guys run that offense like you're supposed to. I'm going to worry about the defense, and we're going to win this division. That's the way. That's the way that I read the whole transcript like that. Like Salah's like, look, I'm going to build around Sauce. We're going to build around the rest of the guys. Get me 25, 30 points a game. Let's just say 25, and then I'll do the rest. I loved it.
Oh, and I did too. I wrote this stat down that I thought was interesting. So they were the 8th worst team in total yards last year. They were the 4th worst team in total points. They had 5 games under 10 points.
Yeah.
Like think about that for a second. They had 5 games under 10 points. They were one of the worst offenses in football and still won 7 games.
Yeah.
And again, a great point that I saw, again, if Rodgers is even somewhat close to how he was in his MVP form 3 years ago, we're talking about a 10-11 win football team. Now, Eric, I agree. This AFC is stacked. I don't know how they compare against the juggernauts, but this division right now is kind of all over the place, really. I mean, like the Patriots, do we think they're going to be any good this year? I don't personally. I mean, their big signing was Juju, and they added Bill O'Brien as OC. I mean, right. Tua, I mean, I pray for him, but what's his health? Like, where's his headspace? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know where he's at health-wise. And the Bills have just been all over the place. So I agree, Eric. I don't know where they rank amongst the juggernauts, but I don't think it's ridiculous to say they're a double-digit win football team this year, and they have a playoff game. I really.
I also wanted to say one thing. So Rodgers last year had a new young receiving core, which was Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and I don't know who else it was, Cobb. And now he's got pretty much the same type of core. He's got a better core, but like I honestly think it'll be the same issue they had last year. He's not going to have that chemistry with a young group like he had with like Devontae Adams. I just feel like that connection that he had Devontae Adams, I just don't think he's going to have it with Garrett Wilson or Lazard, who I actually think isn't really all that great.
Yeah, that was always Colin Cowherd's point, is that he doesn't work well with young guys. And, I can kind of see that. He's a little older. But, again, I see your points, Eric. But for me personally, I think it's pretty crazy to think that they're not dramatically better than they were last year, really.
I think they'll definitely be better, yeah. But, like, I don't think they'll go anywhere.
Yeah. And, I mean, Eric, I'll tell you what, I'll let you keep the mic. What did a team that you thought was a riser this offseason?
So if I look back by the draft and the free agency, I'm going to have to go with the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
So they obviously drafted C.J. Stroud, which I loved in college. Obviously sucked he didn't get a national championship ring because our kicker can't kick a field goal. But I think C.J. Stroud will be the best QB in that draft. I don't like Bryce Young.
Wow. Okay, that's a hot take.
I've never been a Bryce Young fan.
Wow. I don't know, man. I don't know about that. I love me some Bryce Young, but I'll let you have the mic.
But yeah, I love C.J. Stroud. He's the perfect NFL QB. I mean, he's really tall, 6'4", can see over the linemen. They're actually I actually just seen before we started this podcast, John Mechie is coming back from Alabama last year. He's going to start training camp. Nico Collins actually was a decent receiver for them last year. They signed Dalton Schultz, which I loved. I had him in fantasy, and he was awesome. They, on their defensive side, they have a really young defensive group. They drafted, arguably, who I wanted in the draft was Will Anderson, which I think is the best defensive player in that draft. They had drafted last year Derek Stingley, which is a really good, great corner. And they drafted a really good, or not drafted, they signed a really good coach in DeMarco Ryans, which I love him.
Yeah, I love him as well. D'Amico Ryans. Yep.
They have Jimmy Ward that they signed from the 49ers. He's a really great safety. And they just signed defensive tackle Malik Collins. He was a pretty good signing. And I also think if you look at their division, other than the Jaguars, I think they could be a second place team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see that. Yeah.
So I don't think they'll probably be, in my opinion, like a 7 to 8 win team. But I feel like they are a prime example of what like building in the right directions.
Yeah.
Kind of like what, as I would say, because I love the Steelers and they obviously doing this with Kenny Pickett and they're really going in the right direction. So
you had to throw the Steelers in there. You just could not help yourself. Your dad's a Steelers fan and he's even pointing at you. You just could not help yourself.
Here you go.
I had to throw that out there. But
you can't help yourself.
The only thing I will say is they traded Brandon Cooks, which I did not like. I love Brandon Cooks. If you look at his stats, I mean, he's a 1,000-yard receiver or around that. But I think they're really going in the right direction. And if they get some good pieces in the next year or two, I think you're looking at a first place in the AFC South type team.
Wow. All right, Mark, what do you think about that rundown, man?
And let me cut you off. They have the 6th easiest schedule this year.
Yeah. I mean,
I guess for me, like, if when you're saying riser, are you saying like who was just mediocre last year and is going to have the biggest impact, right?
Right.
This year, it's not the Houston Texans.
Yeah,
it's not. Right. Let's be real. Okay. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think they're on the rise for like long term, not short term. I'm just going to leave it at that. The Texans right now are just not in my ballpark, to anything rise on anybody's schedule. Yeah, they got the draft right. I think they did well, but I mean, this year, how many games did they win last year? 4?
Yeah, somewhere around there, I believe. Yeah, 4. Yeah.
I think if they get us maybe 6, okay, great, fine.
Right.
I could do without the Texans. You want my take?
No, I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I think they got it right. Draft wise, I think they're going to have to, draft again some more after this year. I thought it was really surprising because I thought the trend was going to be, offense, and they went defense coach wise, right? And was it Nico? Is that his name?
D'Amico Ryans. Yeah, he was the
D'Amico Ryans.
It seemed like the trend was going to be, hey, we're going to keep on doing those OCs for head coaches, but maybe they're looking at some successful patterns that has happened in the past. For the Jets, what the Jets are going to do. Defensive coordinator. I hate bringing it up because Eric just did it, but Mike Tomlin, he's there.
Right.
Bill Belichick, DC. So maybe they're going to get it right. I think they have the right tools. Who would you say quarterback wise? You thought CJ Stroud was better than Bryce Young?
And hot take, I'll cook this podcast up. They will split with everybody in that division this year.
I mean, real quick, if you don't mind me going.
Yep, you can go.
I don't even know if that's really a hot take. I mean, I'll say.
I don't even think it's a hot take, but go ahead.
No. I like you cooking, though. I like you cooking. Right. No, I mean, listen, like, they did a good job, right? I mean, I like Stroud more than people gave him slack for, right?
Yeah.
Them going after Will Anderson for the 3rd is incredibly, risky. I think he has to be a home run hit because they gave up a lot to trade up there, right? They gave up their own 1st round pick next year, not Cleveland's, which I think is interesting because I think it's safe to say the Texans will still be top 10 in the draft next year, right? So, right. Yeah, I love D'Amico Ryans personally. I mean, he was a great coach for the Niners last year. He was the best defense in football. It's worth a flyer, even though it's an offensive league.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think the Jags run this division for the foreseeable future. I really do see that. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, they already, I think they did okay. They kind of turned it on at the end. Just imagine a full complete year with everybody. So
and they get that guy who was suspended, Calvin Ridley.
Calvin
and yes,
Ridley.
that's one that nobody really talks about, is that they get probably a top 10 receiver back. And if you don't believe in that, maybe top 15 minimum. So
his stats are really good before.
Yeah. And I'll say this, maybe if the Texans were in the NFC, I can give them a couple years, but man, the stars would really have to align for the Texans to make some noise this year or even next year, I think. I still think they're a couple holes away. Again, they did the right things. You had to address quarterback, and Stroud's worth the shot. You add your guy that, that could be Depoy. He's a great player, Will Anderson. He's first or second. So, yeah, they rose, but I don't know if they rose to relevancy just yet. You know what I mean?
Hopefully with the Texans, they learned the example of what not to do in the past is let their head coach be the GM and let the GM be a GM, right?
Yeah, that was a dumpster fire. Yeah, that was really a big dumpster fire.
So hopefully they definitely fix that.
No, I agree. And Mark, take the floor. Stand on the floor. Who'd you have as a riser this offseason?
I'm not gonna lie. I had to go out to the West Coast, man. West Side out there. Seattle Seahawks for me. The Seahawks are coming for everybody. Last year, I don't think anybody had them in the playoffs. Maybe, I don't know. But then they went out their draft. They got Jigma.
Yep.
Jigma? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
and then they went out and got Witherspoon. They needed some defense out there. And let's be real. For me, Pete Carroll, I mean, the guy is one of the most underrated coaches. Like, whenever you hear people talk about coaching, nobody talks about Pete Carroll, besides probably people that have followed Pete Carroll or follow West Coast football and all that. But what he's done, to Geno Smith's career, he's turned Metcalf into a stud. I mean, he was already a stud.
Right.
And then you got Baldwin out there who's doing his thing. But then even in last year's draft, they go draft that running back who I loved out of Michigan State. What's that kid's name?
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker.
Love that kid. And then they go get Jigma. They go on this Cinderella story last year. They lost to the Niners, and it actually turned into a decent game.
Yeah.
Last year in the playoffs, and they did everything right when it came to the draft. So for me, I think they're set up to have a big rise this year. As soon as I heard their draft and everything they did, yeah. And I think they got what's his name back? Wagner, right?
Wagner, yep.
Yeah.
Even though he's 85 years old, but he's still, getting 200
he's still great.
tackles for me. It seems like they have all those core pieces. Those guys are still signing and sticking around. It seems like a lot of people, they trust the process there. They trust their coach. They trust Geno Smith. And they go out and get the right pieces in the draft this year. I'm telling you, watch out. They might mess around. Maybe. Just saying.
Yeah.
They might mess around and win that division.
Wow. No, listen, I'll go real quick, and then Eric, you can go.
Yep.
What they did last year was truly incredible, really. I mean, we're talking about a team that Vegas had their line, I believe, at 4 or 5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they won 10 last year and made the playoffs. I mean, they totally outdid themselves. Like what you said, Geno Smith doing what he did last year is incredible. That offense was just fine. They played good offense. They played solid defense. And like what you said, they had a great draft. I know that, some people say like, oh, Jackson Smith plays slot, and, that's not a premier wide receiver position, but his upside, his upside is incredible, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, you address cornerback, which you desperately needed, but no, I totally agree. I mean, if they could do what they did last year, I don't think it's ridiculous to say they're probably second in the division again, depending on what the Rams do. The Niners, who's their quarterback week 1, I still think they'll be great, obviously. They're still outstanding.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I totally agree. Not only did they totally outdo themselves last year, they even got better this offseason. I like it, Mark. I do. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, this was actually a very close first for me. Actually, I was going to say to them, but like I was looking at their roster and their secondary is insane. I don't know if you know, but they have Witherspoon. They're getting Jamal Adams back. Quandre Diggs was great last year, and Tariq Woolen, I think, didn't he? Is he the guy that had all those picks last year?
Yeah. He
Yeah.
had a great year for
Yeah.
them. Yep.
And obviously, they have three weapons that could just go for 1,000 yards in the near future, especially
Right.
for Jackson Smith, who is insane. They drafted Charles Cross last year, the tackle. I think where did he come from?
Ole Miss, he had a great year last year too.
Yep. So yeah, all the points you guys said were very true.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And again, thank you for mentioning all the players that they had. You know, Woolen, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs is great. Then you add Witherspoon to that secondary. You add offensive weapons for Geno, and you re-sign Geno on a pretty team-friendly deal. If he doesn't do that well next year, you can find a way to move off of him. But I agree that the best way I can put it is that if you can win 5 more games than you did last year, when you were projected at 4 wins and turn it into 9 and 10,
Yep.
I can't see them doing any worse, maybe only better from that spot. So, no, good pick, Mark. I totally agree.
Let's go.
Something like that. Something like that. Yeah. But listen, with risers come fallers, right? I mean, that's the beauty of the NFL is half the teams that make the playoffs one year, they don't the next year. So the team that I picked to fall, they were not a playoff team last year, but they were pretty damn close. And I think they're only going to get worse. That for me pretty easily was the Tennessee Titans. And I have a little write-up here about them as well. They were a league worse in pass defense last year. League worse. So this offseason, they signed Sean Murphy-Bunting, who's a solid corner. And that's pretty much all the notable signings they did. And which is a crazy stat I'm about to say is they were a league worse pass defense last year. The Titans were. They drafted 0 defensive players.
Yeah.
In the draft, they drafted Peter Skoronski. Hopefully I said his name correctly. He's a great O-lineman. He's going to be great. Then their next pick was Will Levis. Not in love with him at all. Really. I mean, I guess he's worth the upside in the second round that he fell, but he's not making an impact this year. And also, too, by the way, it's a passing league. It's an offensive league. The Titans, I think, without a debate, probably have the worst wide receiving core in football. And again, they didn't do anything to address that this offseason. Their top 3 receivers as follows: Traylon Burks, Nick Westbrook Ikini. I don't know how you pronounce that name. Kyle Phillips and Chris Moore. Guys, we're diehard football fans. I don't know 3 of those guys. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a passing league. They got the worst receiving core in football. They rely on the running game. Derrick Henry at this point, hate to be this guy, he's probably a ticking time bomb. If he got hurt next year, I mean, he's about to be 30 years old. I don't wish injury upon no one, but if he got hurt next year, would anybody be surprised? And a big takeaway that I took against the Jacksonville Jaguars game last year, a game for them to make the playoffs, I'm like, Henry ain't got no more explosiveness anymore, bro. He has no more explosiveness. So Tennessee's offense is outdated. Tannehill gets worse every year. They have the worst receiving core in football. And Vrabel's good enough to keep them maybe, relevant. But they won 7 wins last year and they got worse. And they still believe in this old school running game offense. They have the worst offensive wide receivers in football. They didn't do anything to improve their defense. I got them at maybe a 5-win football team this year, really. And Eric, to maybe go to your point, I don't think it's ridiculous to say maybe the Texans jump them this year. Maybe the Colts jump them this year with their new coach and Anthony Richardson. So, I mean, I don't know. I think they're a dumpster fire. Does anybody got something to say about that?
You can go to.
Yeah, I think you hit it on. I mean, he hit it on every aspect, right? So they got this like old school mentality, and I love it. You guys know me. I love watching the pulling guards and the tackles, but if you look at that squad, I could be a defensive coordinator. Hey guys, we're just going to put 8 in the box because I got Ben at slot, and then I got Eric out there at the Y, and then I got let me see the guy that just changed my oil at quarterback right now. Yeah, I think Derrick Henry's going to get the ball. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they've addressed nothing. So yeah, it's a total dumpster fire. I completely, and actually I had them written down because I had a feeling somebody was going to mention the fire dumpster that you're talking about. So, but I have a backup for that. But no, I completely agree. Which is crazy because you would think like, in Tennessee, Vrabel,
Yes.
they have really good fans. It's a great place to watch a football game. Usually it's pretty nice in Tennessee all the time. And, what they've done like the past year or two, like they got to change it.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they had, some type of passing game, it would set up the play action. The linebackers would probably have to back up maybe a couple more yards, or the safeties would have to back up a little more. But right now, you're looking at it. You got what's his Willis, who's supposed to be their future.
Yeah,
IQ of 4. Right. Whatever. He's trash. That's all they have right now is pretty much Derrick Henry. And it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if this dumpster fire is happening and Derrick Henry, that's the note that I wrote down. I think he's getting it in his career now to where, hey, I'm going to be 30 years old. Trade me, it wouldn't surprise me. He goes somewhere where it's turf, where it's more, maybe more friendly, weather friendly. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they were number one for me on downfall.
Yeah. No, Eric, I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty hit it on the nose there. I mean, looking at the roster, they didn't get better anywhere, to be honest. I mean, the guy that I wanted to draft, which was really the only good pick they had, was the Scronsky kid.
Yeah,
he's great, but like, it hurts my heart to say this because last year I wanted Willis in Pittsburgh, and he obviously didn't pan out well. But yeah, I mean, you guys, I mean, their receivers are just like your dad said. I mean, there's nobody. This team isn't going to go anywhere, unfortunately. But yeah, in the near future, there'll be like a 4-win team, maybe. But yeah, this team just isn't.
Yeah, they're trash.
Yeah, 2 things I want to close on real quick is one, I mean, it took a last regular season playoff game for them to decide whether they're going to clinch the playoffs or not. That will not happen again. I guarantee it. I'll bet you guys it won't go down to the wire this year. And second off, did they not make one of the worst trades that we've remembered in the AJ Brown trade? I mean, really? I mean, they are still kicking themselves up about that. Mike Vrabel last year, when they were talking about how they didn't pass the ball, he was like, yeah, we just are kind of running out of guys to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
That was a horrible trade. They're still feeling the effects of it. And yeah, I have them as a loser.
Yep.
Mark, you're highlighted on my screen right now. How about you just take it away? Who's a loser that you had that I took the Titans from you?
Well, the next one I have downfall is going to be the Rams. I think the Rams have just, they hit that pinnacle, and they got that beautiful stadium out there, and they've really done nothing, with that team. I totally think they're probably going to lose probably. Well, actually, they're probably going to win the least. How's that? I mean, it's going to be them in Tennessee right there. I mean, even though they got Jared Goff, right? But I don't know.
Stafford.
Who?
Stafford.
Oh, yeah, the other guy.
Accident. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. They had Goff. But I don't know. I mean, they've done nothing to improve that team. I think for that team right now, they're looking forward to the future. They're actually doing something other than Tennessee. I think they have the right coach to build around that. I think they have all the right tools. Plus, they got a quarterback, that's in their backyard that can, drive an hour up the road. Hey, I'm going to play for you guys next year. Please make sure you guys only win 2 games to draft me so I can stay in California. But I mean, past that, what we saw, last year, what they got rid of Jalen Ramsey. Wagner didn't work out. Who's the running back that's taller
they got rid of Darrell Henderson. They got rid of Allen Robinson.
I mean, everything's gone. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think, they were up here and they're just boom, boom,
Right.
boom, boom. And I think that they know it, it's coming. Um, but they're doing it the right way. They're getting rid of all that cap, getting all that dead weight, and they're going to build a really good legacy, for the future. But I know that's like off topic wise. But I think they're doing it for the right reasons. Unfortunately, that's my take. I mean, when I look at the team as a whole, there's nothing there to build around. Who's the quarterback this year that's going to back up? Who do
Stenson
they
Bennett.
have? Who?
Back up Matthew Stafford and Stenson Bennett.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a long year because Stafford's going to get hurt again. He's got a Super Bowl, he's got his payday with AT&T and all his endorsements and all that crap. But it's it's the ramifications of trying to build up that team. Everybody still had a last run in them. Let's do it. It's good for football. I got the brand new stadium. But they're going to be a bad team this year. It would not surprise me if you hear with the first pick of the draft, it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams.
Easy.
Yes.
That's a little bit of a hot take.
They No,
Wow.
they are. Yeah,
Wow.
they're bad, man. I mean, it's going to be a long year. I feel bad for my boy Eli. Rest in peace, for his team this year. But
Little Eli Manning shout out.
Yeah, I got to shout out Eli. I mean, I don't know if we want to get in that topic that I talked about. The reason why. But when I look at the big picture, right? Whenever you see that Sean McVay won with that team. Great team to set up. But what better story for Sean McVay for his legacy? Because that guy's a brainiac. I mean, let's be real. I mean, he is so ahead of everybody. But right now, he's got his stud coming up at USC, Caleb Williams, right? He's going to be the first pick for the Rams. And what way to prove, your ego, how smart you are, you've gone in the system, is to build that team around and win again. Oh my gosh. And then you retire, and then you get the Romo package with Amazon or ESPN and whatever you do.
Yeah.
And then your legacy is goated, but that's for another topic.
Yeah, no, we're going to touch base on that later for sure, because I think it's interesting. It'll definitely be a heated debate, but Mark, I agree. I will say this: when you first were kind of alluding to, when we were talking privately a couple weeks ago, that the Rams are going to be a lot worse, and kind of looking at their roster, it's they lost 9 defensive starters. They lost Allen Robinson. They didn't have a first-round pick to really address some holes. They drafted 14 players, which I thought was interesting, but it was all pretty much late rounders. You're kind of forcing guys that maybe on other teams would be a backup. You're forcing them to play big roles and seeing them. But my overall point with the Rams is that they're going to try. They're going to try to win for at least half the games, because my ultimate point was this. Donald was thinking about retiring 2 years ago. And I think Donald has a good enough relationship with McVay in the front office. If their idea was to tank, they probably would have just told him straight up, like, hey, bruh, let's save you some time and energy. We're not going to be good. How about you just sit out, and it was a good run. So Donald comes back, Stafford comes back, and Kupp comes back. Mind you, these are the 3 core players that won you a Super Bowl not 10 years ago, not 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So I agree. The roster, I could kind of see them halfway through the season just falling apart. Right, for the things that you said. They missed 9 defensive starters. Their O-line's a little weak. Their wideouts outside of Kupp are pretty much cooked. But they're going to try. They're going to try to at least win halfway through the season, and then I don't know where it's going to go from there.
Well, who's in their division? Niners, right?
Yeah.
Niners, Cardinals.
0-2? That's fair assessment, right?
Right, yeah.
Seattle? 0-2?
Yeah, I mean, maybe 0-2. I could see them splitting with them, yeah.
And
They'll
then
sweep the Cardinals.
Oh yeah, well, Cardinals. Yeah, maybe 1-1 with the Cardinals. I don't know, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, that's all fair.
Yeah, they're gonna try. I mean, Eric, what do you think about that? I think they'll try to at least try to win halfway through the season.
Yeah, they. I think they'll be in the same spot they were last year. How many wins they get last year? Like, how much
they were very bad. I believe they won 5 games. I believe.
Yeah, I think they'll be around that range too. Yes, I actually might be a tiny bit better, but yeah, they have, like you said, Ben, their three main courses back. Cups, in my opinion, is still a top 3 receiver in the league. Stafford's back. I don't know what condition he's in. He's a lot older now, and I don't know if he's going to be in the Super Bowl mode, but I don't think he will be. But yeah, I don't think they'll be going anywhere.
Yeah, they won 5 games last year. I just pulled it up. I was close. 6 games.
They'll win 4 or 5 this year too. Maybe.
Wow, I just don't know. I don't know. I know they have a hard schedule. I think it all comes down to the health of your big 3. Where's Donald health wise? Where he's at in the headspace? How's Kupp's health and how's Stafford's health? I could see them in a doomsday scenario winning 5 games. But we saw the doomsday scenario play out last year, right? When they had Baker Mayfield and Wolford for over half the season. So I don't know. I know that's one of your hot takes that we're going to discuss later in the episode, but I could see them as a faller for sure.
If you look at their offensive side, though, their pieces that won them a ring are also all back. So I mean, like, if they all stay healthy, they could be something. But looking at the defensive side, and it is a completely changed defense.
Your favorite offensive lineman retired after they won the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, I know. He's a dog. I get that. I know he's reporting right now. But again, I'm going to close with this.
Okay.
You would have told Donald, if you're going to tank, to retire. If you're going to tank, you have a good enough relationship with Stafford to try to get something out of it. I just don't think you bring those guys back with the intention of tanking. I don't think that's their mindset. But I mean, Eric, talking about tanking and losing, who did you have as a loser this offseason?
This one, I don't know, is a shocker, but I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when they traded Aaron Rodgers, I was not thrilled at all. I remember that day I came home, and my grandpa is a huge Packers fan. I came home, and I was complaining to him. Because, like, it wasn't just Aaron Rodgers being traded because I knew at some point he was going to get traded, but honestly, they could have got more out of it. They only, in my opinion, got a first-round pick, which I don't know where they're going to sit at next year with Jordan Love. They might need a QB depending on how Jordan Love works out. I'll get to that in a minute. But they only got first-round pick, second-round pick, and a 2023 conditional second-round pick. So I don't know. And then this year, I mean, they have a young offensive group again. Receivers, I don't know. Christian Watson came on at the end pretty decent, but I don't think Jordan Love is all that good. He's now in his 5th year, I think. Hasn't ever started a game. And yeah, Jordan Love, I was really just never a fan of. And I'm saying, like, if he doesn't pan out next year, what do you do then? Because I don't think they'll be bad enough to get Caleb Williams, obviously, and I don't know anybody in next year's draft class other than him that's going to be a NFL QB. And so, like, if Jordan Love does not pan out, you're in a hole because obviously the most important position in the NFL is QB. And now you have all these young receivers, and they won't even know what to do. And honestly, I didn't like their first-round draft pick this year. It was Lucas Van Ness. I don't know much about him, but in my personal opinion, it should have been Jackson Smith because he was available.
Yeah, we're going to draft Steelers.
Easy, Eric. You're backtracking. It sounds like.
Always got to bring it up.
Combos are coming into this podcast now. Huh?
Yeah, always got to bring it up. But yeah, I think they should have went Jackson Smith because I remember they drafted him, and it was just a terrible pick. And on the defensive side, Preston Smith and Kenny Clark, they're all getting old, so their defensive line is weak there. Their corners are also pretty average. I mean, they have Jair, which is like the only good one, and Bakhtiari is about to retire. So yeah, I don't really see this team going anywhere. I'm actually looking at a 3rd place team, maybe last. I don't know. I don't think this team will be that good, and I think by the end of this year we will be saying Jordan Love is not the guy, and the Packers will be in a hole for the near future.
Yeah, I'll say this. obviously you lost because you lose an all-time great. I've always had a love for Rodgers. I kind of think of him less after just this past offseason and just how that last season went with the Packers. But it's obviously a loss. But I thought it was really interesting. I remember a game last season where Jordan Love came in against the Eagles. And I don't know if you guys
he did really good.
He looked all right.
He did pretty good, actually.
Right? And at some point, I don't know if Jordan Love's the answer. I'm not sure his outlook this year. I could see him struggling early on, but you have to at least try it out for a season. I mean, you drafted him in the late first round. You thought he was the predecessor or, the guy after Rodgers. I don't think he'll be a dumpster fire. I could see him as a league average quarterback, but I agree. I think they're not only did they did bad last year, I could see them getting worse. I don't know how they can really get better from this. I don't know. That division's really weird because I think the Vikings are going to do worse. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago. The Lions are only getting better. So, yeah, I'm okay with you saying they're a loser.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but it's just like, I feel like this at the end of the year, like the big question will be is if Jordan Love doesn't pan out, I mean, what do you do? It's like, do you know anybody in next year's draft class other than Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I mean, you have the North Carolina guy, Luke May.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, obviously.
And I feel like all the teams in the NFL right now have their guy. So I don't think anybody will be traded there and also the Packers, I mean, in the future, they've never really made a big move. So if they were to have the option to get a big time QB, I don't think they will do it because their ownership. So
yeah,
I don't see this team going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, they not only do you lose Rodgers, you lose a couple other key guys like Lazard, and you don't really sign anybody notable. So I'm okay with you saying they're a loser. Mark, what do you think about that?
I'm not okay with that. I think as history has shown with the Green Bay Packers, they're one of those organizations that have just, they kind of stick with their plan, right? So how many years ago did we say the same thing about Aaron Rodgers? Whenever Brett Favre decided that, he wanted to part ways or they were mad because they drafted a quarterback. It just seems like Green Bay has this plan and they just stick with it. I mean, how many games they win last year? 8? Did they go 8-9? I think
they won 9 games and they lost the final one to the Lions.
I have the same team this year. I really do. I think and Ben hit it, earlier. Vikings, I think they're probably going to be a little trash. I'm still not sold on the Bears yet. I mean, the Bears did very well, but I think they have a lot to prove. I think it's Detroit's defense. But past that, I mean, if Green Bay has a mediocre defense, which they will, I mean, they always have a 15 ranked defense. Besides the past couple of years, they were top 10. They were studs. But I mean, they still have Aaron Jones. They still have Bakhtiari. They still have, that Watson, which, I mean, last year he got tons of experience being with Aaron Rodgers on how to probably run routes. And I'm sure, Jordan Love has had 3 years sitting back watching a Hall of Famer, do his thing. I'm sure he's taking kind of notes. And Rodgers has even said on some of them shows that, him and Jordan Love, they had a really good relationship. I mean, there was no hate there. I don't know. I think I think they're almost the same team as last year. I don't see any downfall.
Wow.
I really do. But if you think about it, that's the Packer way. This is what they do. Like I'm really surprised that they hung on to Aaron Rodgers this long between all the, the salary cap and is he going to re-sign? Is he in Antarctica or is he down in a cave or, what's he doing? You know what I mean? Like, okay, time to move on. The guy got you a title, got you a couple MVPs, and he did his reign. I'm not disrespecting that guy at all. But I mean, you could definitely tell like watching Green Bay last year. Okay, it's time to write that script. We did our thing. We got our guy. Here's our guy. He's had 3 years to just sit back, stay healthy, not take a hit, learn from a Hall of Famer. Let's see what he can do. I think they definitely pull some games out that we don't expect. I don't think you're going to see the big guy used a lot. I think they're going to be more wide open play action. Probably 4 or 5 receivers out there. But I don't agree with that one. I honestly, I mean, if Detroit wasn't in the position that they're in right now, I would almost have like a two-way tie or something like that for them to win the division.
For the Packers to win the division.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, listen, I'll say this, and I'll agree with you a little bit here. Let's close the chapter on Rodgers. Let's move on. You can tell he's disgruntled. He doesn't want to be there anymore. It's a weird relationship. You have to try out Jordan Love. Okay. You have to do it. And they had the 14th easiest schedule. They made a couple good drafts that I like. I like Luke Van Ness more than you like him, Eric. I think he'll be all right for them. I think he'll be okay. You had a lot of draft picks last year. I think it's worth a shot. They're better than the Bears. I could see the Vikings maybe being better than them, but I don't think they're a scratch in third or a scratch in fourth. I think it's, I'm interested to see their development. I'm not ready to say that they're going to completely suck.
Where do you think they'll rank this year in the division?
I can't see them winning the division. I think the Lions did better than them last year, and I think they only got better this offseason, like I mentioned. Like, they brought in Gardner Johnson. They brought in the corner from the Niners. I'm having Emmanuel Mosley. They added Jahmyr Gibbs, who I thought was a reach, but he's still a weapon. Yeah. I'll see what happens. Ben Johnson's a savant. I think they'll win the division. I think the Lions will win the division. But I think the Vikings are going to get worse. For, like I said, they won 11 one-score games last year. They can't do that again. That's just not.
Their defense is going to be terrible.
Yeah. Their defense got worse. They lost four of the top five guys. Patrick Peterson, who's a Steeler. Zadarius Smith came over to us, right? I mean,
the Vikings are the 2008 Pittsburgh Steelers that lost to Green Bay.
Yeah.
They have a great offense, but no defense.
Right. Yep. Yeah. No, I could see the Packers maybe battling for second and third. I don't know if they're the last place team. I don't think they are.
Could you go and where did they end up last year? Third place?
Yep.
Third place.
Yeah, I mean, third place in that division. Could you imagine they end up second in that division without Aaron Rodgers? Oh my God.
Right.
That front office
would be tickled.
They're gonna look like geniuses.
Yeah, they'd be tickled for sure. No, I think it's worth the shot. Eric, I'll close with this. I can see where it's a loss because, again, you lose Rodgers. Yeah. But I could see it as maybe a win because you could finally close the chapter on this situation, see what you got with Love, and go from there. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm glad we talked about this. I don't think they're relevant, but I don't think they're irrelevant just yet, so that's interesting. But now, you guys alluded to some hot takes, right, earlier in the week, and I said we're going to have to get on a podcast and talk about this. I would like to start off with my hot take first here. We're going to have our hot takes and then close this episode out, right?
All right. Okay.
My hot take is this. Hear me out, guys, okay? I think the Los Angeles Chargers missed the playoffs this year. I do not think they make the playoffs. Now, listen to me, guys. Listen to me, okay? They have the worst playoff loss in NFL history last year, right? Complete and absolute meltdown to Jacksonville. And it's an inexcusable loss for that franchise, right? This offseason, they don't really add anybody notable, really. I mean, you add Eric Kendricks for your linebacker core, which is interesting. You added Quentin Johnson from TCU. He's a big target. You still have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, who are totally banged up, and you don't know they are completely, unreliable. They had the worst pass defense against the rush and ranked 21st in points allowed. And like I alluded to, their really only notable defensive signing last year was getting Eric Kendricks. So I thought that was kind of bizarre to me. And everybody on the media is praising their hire of Kellen Moore. That's like, oh, it was such a good signing. I love Kellen Moore. He's such a, he's better than Joe Lombardi, right? Are we talking about the Kellen Moore that gets bumped out in the second round every year? We're talking about the guy that was the OC for the Cowboys that every time they're in the playoffs, they just kind of underperformed. Like, why do we think all of a sudden that, this was the Chargers' missing piece? What's Kellen Moore's track record? I mean, he does great for the regular season with the Cowboys, but when it matters most, the Cowboys did what they did best and choked. And I'll say this. I want to end with three more things with this team. One, I do not like how they bring back Brandon Staley. Again, I don't know how you lose that bad of a playoff game and just think, let's run it back with that coaching staff. That's an all-time collapse. They'll never be able to chase that loss away. And now this year, the Chiefs are the Super Bowl champions. They got to play them twice. And the Chiefs do great against them every single time. Sean Payton's in that division now. And I love Sean Payton. He's a top 5 coach in football, top 10 coach all time. Is it crazy to believe that the Broncos will be better than the Chargers? I mean, let's really, truly think about it. I will take Sean Payton and Vance Joseph, and, and ironically enough, their OC's Joe Lombardi, over the Chargers coaching staff any single day. And I'll close on this. The Chargers play the 6th hardest schedule this year.
Mm-hmm.
Their wins last year. Here are the quarterbacks that they beat last year, and they scraped 10 wins. Mm-hmm. They played the teams that they beat last year at quarterback had Derek Carr, Davis Mills, Jacoby Brissett, Russell Wilson in the catastrophe that was the Broncos, Marcus Mariota, Baker Mayfield for the Rams, Nick Foles, Ryan Tannehill, and the dumpster fire that were the Cardinals last year and Kyler Murray. Let me know what's a notable win for them last year, guys. Let me know. And I know a win's a win, right? I'd much rather have 10 ugly wins than 5, right? Yeah. But this year they had the 6th hardest schedule. You play Mahomes twice. You play a Russell Wilson coach, Sean Payton twice. You play Josh Allen. You play Dak Prescott. You play Lamar Jackson. You play Aaron Rodgers. You play Jared Goff, who is on an emerging Lions team. And you play Kirk Cousins. And again, I know we had our questions with Kirk Cousins, but I'm not ready to scratch this team as a playoff team. I'm not. I'm sorry. I mean, does anybody have anything to oppose that? Or
hey, whenever I watch that episode, I completely agree with you. I completely agree. Because I it was like, I don't believe in that. That coach lost my trust in some of his play calling that he's done in the past couple years, right? And you hit on the head. Allen's getting old. Mike Williams, you don't know if that ankle, is going to hold up every single year. And they've done nothing. And I still have the Chiefs. I think the Broncos, they have to be better than what they were. I mean, they have to be.
They have to be. They're too well coached. Sean Payton's too good. And do we think Russell Wilson's now completely cooked? Or was it he had probably the worst coaching situation in football last year? Oh, and the Broncos wideouts are really good. And their defense is still top 10. They just signed Frank Clark last week. How are we so ready to pencil in that the Chargers are better than them? But continue, Mark.
Yeah, no, I actually love that. I've talked to people at work, and I got so much hate off of it. And the only thing they always say is they got Justin Herbert. Oh, okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, but Justin Herbert's going to turn into an old man because he's too busy running around getting killed, or he doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to. Eckler, in my opinion, Eckler is going to start. His numbers are going to start dropping and dropping and dropping because let's look at all the running backs every single year. Every single year, those running backs, they just keep on pounding the numbers. Well, and also their bodies are taking the most tolls that's out there. He's going to wear down. I mean, let's just be real. I applaud you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, I'm kind of passionate about it because, again, the Chargers have a good receiving core on paper. Mm-hmm. Where's their health at come December? Where's their health at come January? Mm-hmm. And again, I just think they're everybody's big MO was they got Kellen Moore. He's better than Joe Lombardi. He's going to cook up. Right. He did. He cooked up for the Cowboys, they looked really cool when they played the Commanders 2 times. And when, no offense to Ethan, but when the Giants had, Joe Judge at coach, I'm just not convinced that they're just all of a sudden taking this leap. I mean, Eric, do you oppose that?
I'm going to have to disagree.
Okay. All right. I mean, let's hear it, bro. Let's hear it.
In my personal opinion, I think you guys are giving Justin Herbert too much hate. Justin Herbert is a top 8.
Always mention Herbert.
I love Justin Herbert.
That's fair.
I love Justin Herbert. I do. I love Justin Herbert.
Let me go get the dog. You guys debate under that.
I love Justin Herbert. Right, what do you think?
I think Justin Herbert is a really good elite QB. They have Austin Eckler, which I love. He can catch the ball and run the ball. I think he's still not at that late running back phase. They have 3 really good receivers. They got Quentin Johnson, which is just saying he's really tall, and I think it's a very good option for Herbert. But also, I mean, I did like what you said about the factor of Keenan Allen getting hurt and Mike Williams getting hurt. But I mean, when they're healthy, they're all going to be clicking. To your Kellen Moore point is not a fair point at I think Justin Herbert is 10 times better than Dak Prescott. The Chargers' options are 10 times better than what Dallas had last year. I mean, all that Kellen Moore had last year was CeeDee Lamb and I don't know who else. They also have Jared Everett too. They drafted Zion Johnson. Was that this year or last year?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They drafted Rashawn Slater last year. And I think they'll be the second best team in that division.
Yeah.
They'll sweep the Raiders, they'll split with the Broncos, and hot take, they'll split with the Chiefs.
No. They haven't beat it's been 2 years since they beat the Chiefs. They're the Super Bowl champions. I'm telling you, they ain't splitting with the Chiefs. They
did get Eric Kendricks too. They got
Eric, whenever we're
which,
done with this podcast, I'm taking you straight to the doctor. You're going to go get a drug test.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Eric, listen, right? Listen. I understand. I agree that Kellen Moore is working with better weapons than he did last year. I totally agree.
Way better weapons, not just
and
better.
Justin Herbert is better than Dak Prescott. It's not a debate. I agree with that. But now, I showed you their wins last year. They're playing a harder schedule. Brandon Staley is still not that good to me.
Right.
I'll be damned if I'll say this. I'll be damned. I'm going to call it right now. They are finishing third. The Broncos will finish higher than them. I'm 100% going to stand on that. Sean Payton is too good.
That's ridiculous.
Sean Payton is just too damn good. I truly do believe that. He's too damn good. The Broncos have an easier schedule than the Chargers do.
I got to get my battery. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Broncos will be better than them, the second place. I do really, truly do believe that.
That's ridiculous
I think they're better than
in
the
my
Chargers.
opinion, but I think the Chargers will be better than what you think they're.
I don't know, dude. I don't know. I mean, do I not make a great point for the Chargers being bad, though? I mean, truly, do I?
I mean, no, I can see where you're coming from, but I just don't think anything that you said will happen.
All right.
And I also think the Broncos will be a little bit better.
I think they'll be a lot better. I mean, they once, you know, they're a 4-win increase than they were last year, and that would put them at 10 minimum. They're 4 wins better because of Sean Payton. And if they're 4 more wins than they did last year, that's 10 minimum. I mean, come on. But Eric, I'll let you keep the floor. I want to hear your hot take here. I'm interested to see what you got.
Yeah. So you've already heard this, but my hot take personally is I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will mess around and win that.
Don't do it, Eric. Don't do it. Why did you say that?
I'm going to do that because, so we obviously know the GOAT retired, but that's a whole other topic, you know. But they did, I mean, obviously they have a big question at QB, which Baker has showed. I don't like the man, but Baker has showed at times he's been good. 2020.
When? 3 years ago? 3 years
ago?
ago?
Oh boy.
No, he looked good 3 years ago, Eric.
Just wait.
Let him go. Floor is yours.
They still have Mike Evans, which he's still good. Probably top 15, maybe. Chris Godwin's a really good receiver, 1,000 a year, probably. Russell Gage is another really good option. Kate Otten was also a very good tight end in the red zone for them. They did lose. They lost maybe one lineman, but they still have the same defense back. They have Devin White, he's insane. So in that division, I'm sorry, is horrendous. Terrible. The Saints, I know you guys probably are picking the Saints to win that division, which I totally disagree. They'll probably be second place, but I think on paper that roster is the most complete roster in that division. Oh, wait. And I forgot they drafted that defensive tackle from Pitt. His name's Casey. He's pretty good. Who else in that division? Saints,
Panthers.
Falcons. I mean,
Falcons.
they're Falcons. They're terrible. They're better than the Falcons. And then who else?
Can I ask you something? Eric? Can I ask you something? I'm going to give you a quick rundown, okay? Who's better right now, Baker Mayfield or Derek Carr?
Derek Carr.
Okay. Would you rather take Bryce Young right now or Baker Mayfield?
Baker Mayfield, because Bryce Young.
What are you doing? You just said
Eric, no.
Bryce Young
Eric,
has not played
he
a
posted
single.
50 PFF playoff grade. That is the worst out of any quarterback. He was ranked 50 rating in PFF.
Bryce Young has not played a single snap in the NFL yet.
I don't think he has to be better than Baker Mayfield right now. I don't. Eric, listen.
Just saying, other than QB, I think Baker will be enough with their roster to win that division.
Eric,
they have the most complete roster.
Eric, they were a dumpster fire last year.
Because Brady was literally cooked. He could not move outside the pocket.
Is Baker Mayfield better than is going to be
He's
better
quicker than
than what Tom Brady was last year?
He's quicker than Tom Brady.
You think that Baker Mayfield this year is going to be better than Tom Brady was last year?
I don't know. It's just a question.
So then if you don't know, that means that they're going to be a dumpster fire again. You cannot have a quarterback room of Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask and get on here and tell me that they're going to win in the division. When the Saints have the easiest schedule in football, they got better at quarterback. You know how many times the Saints play outside this year? 3 times. They don't play a team that's in the top 8 in the power rankings, the Saints. They don't play anybody this year. They have the easiest schedule. And the Panthers, who I have their pick to win the division, Frank Reich's better than Todd Bowles. Bryce Young is better than Baker Mayfield. The Buccaneers, their big losses this year, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Donovan Smith at tackle. They lost Keanu Neal.
Donovan Smith is one of the worst tackles in the league, by the way. So I'm just saying.
I mean, dude, I think you're wrong. I mean, Mark, what do you got to think about that?
I've had to hear about this hot take for 2 weeks now since we started to come on here. And I Eric, I just hope this goes online, and I hope this blows up Ben's page. And then maybe we just start doing this every day, because everybody's going to get on here and think, what dumb stuff is Eric going to talk about today? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If they win that division, Eric, I'll buy you some flu game Jordans for.
All right, that will happen.
Like that. But Todd Bowles, historically, he's a great defensive coordinator. I think he's a great father, a great leader, a great man. But let's be real. One thing he is not a head coach. He does not produce offensive numbers. Look what he did with the Jets. I mean, the Jets every year, we're going to be good. Nope, we got Todd Bowles, and all he cares about is defense.
Let me ask you this.
No, it's my turn. You just quiet down there. They were a dumpster fire with Tom Brady, with Mike Evans, with all the pieces that they have. And now we got Baker Mayfield leading the dumpster fire, same team last year, and it's going to be god awful. They're drafting for that quarterback hopefully in the next couple of years. They will come last in that division.
They will come last?
Yeah, no, they will be last.
I'll take the Saints over them all day long. And who else?
You're taking the Falcons? Yeah. You're going to take the Falcons.
Who is it?
Yes,
Falcons?
Atlanta. It's Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans.
Oh yeah, all day long.
Eric,
if you watched the Falcons last year, dude, the Falcons were in so many games. I'm telling you, Tampa Bay.
I'm not in love with Atlanta either, but here's my ultimate point. Todd Bowles is 1 year away from getting fired. Todd Bowles is maybe barely better than Dennis Allen. Yep. He ain't better than Frank Wright, and he ain't better than Arthur Smith.
Nope.
You have maybe You maybe have the worst quarterback in the division. You maybe might have the worst quarterback in the division. Eric, Todd Bowles is a defensive coach, and their defense was not that good last year.
No, they're terrible.
They were like let's not rely on them defense for showing up, because they didn't show up last year. Not only do I find it insane that you think they're going to win in the division, because I think they're the worst team. They might be the worst team in football this year. They really might be the worst team in football this year.
That's insane.
I mean, I just, it's either going to be the Saints and the Panthers winning that division. Tampa's either third or fourth minimum. They are nothing higher than third.
They won the division with a 45-year-old QB. You think Baker Mayfield is that, you think they're going to decrease because of Baker Mayfield? You think Baker Mayfield is that bad?
Yeah, he is. He's
with
horrible for the
Mike
Panthers.
Evans and Chris Godwin.
Yeah, Eric, he's really bad, buddy.
Baker Mayfield went to the playoffs with Jarvis Landry. You think he's not going to do anything with Mike Evans and Chris?
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. You pulled something 3 years ago. It was a great run, and he was actually playing well then. Every year after that, he's been horrible. So
because his teams have been terrible. I mean, he was on the Panthers last year. He was on the Panthers last year.
The Buccaneers are terrible. The Buccaneers are terrible.
This is how bad Tampa Bay is going to be.
The Buccaneers are terrible.
Yeah, right now, this is how bad the NFL or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. The worst odds right now to win the Super Bowl, Vegas. Texans, Cardinals, Colts, Titans, Commanders, Bucks. They have the Panthers ahead of the Bucks, and they have the Falcons ahead of the Bucks.
They'll shock it. I'm telling you. They'll shock it. I'm telling you.
It's funny because you had them winning the division because I actually had them as one of the worst teams in football. They have the worst quarterback in the division. They have the worst coach in the division. They have they might have the worst defense in the division. And what? I mean, it's going to be not that great. I mean, they will be better than Atlanta's defense, but they are not going to be better than Evro's defense led in Carolina. They're not going to be better than the Saints defense. I think you're wrong. But before
they have Levante David, Devin White, Shaquille Barrett, Jamal Dean, Antoine Winfield, all back. You think
that's great? They didn't look good last year.
Oh my!
You're pulling guys that were on the same team last year that did not look good.
Hey, that's a hot take, I guess.
That's a hot take. I mean, it's a hot take. That's the beauty of this debate is that we can debate this, right?
Yep.
Like hellfire hot take.
Yeah.
But maybe I got one to back it up.
All right.
You know what? You had a podcast about, I don't know, it was a week ago. And I wish I would have been on there because whoever that guy was, and he was just bad mouthing the Giants. Who is that guy?
They were both, Howie and Christian were both bad mouthing.
Yeah, they both were.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
The New York Football Giants are going to win that division this year.
Wow. Well, take the
what that coach has done to Daniel Jones's confidence. Getting Darren Waller there. Saquon, they're going to get a deal done. They're going to build around. I mean, they have their core guys on me. And look what they did last year. And all they did was they've grown from it. They drafted well. They signed that tight end that they need, you know. And let's be real. If you got a coach that has that kind of swag, that comes in, that can rock a pair of J's, come on, man. And in New York, and he's got the team believing. And how many wins were they supposed to win last year? 5, 6, if that? Right. Trash. Right. What'd they rip off? 10, 11? I'm telling you, Philly on paper, Philly's, I mean, a monster, right?
Right.
But I think if anybody has momentum right now, if anybody that's shown like if you can believe like where we went from 2 years ago to just bringing on a coach and making them believe, talk about like their culture, what these guys can do, what your abilities are. All we got to do is change some schemes on the offensive wise. And then all of a sudden you see it click and you got your quarterback signed up that they're going to wrap up Saquon. They got Darren Waller. They got some wide receivers out there and their wide receiver core, it's not the best. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not the best, but it really does remind me of like, you know, just, I got great talent at quarterback. I got great talent at running back. It doesn't matter what kind of receiver I need because you know what? Those defenses, they're going to have to change their schemes a lot. And now you just added that Darren Waller factor in there. I mean, huge for those guys. I think the Giants are going to make some moves, you know, probably going to squeak out probably 12, 13 wins this year. Win that division.
A 12-win team. You think the Giants are a 12-win team?
I am all in on the Giants. I am all in on the Giants. And I'm not saying that because my son. I mean, you tell me. I'll tell Ethan. If that team is trash, they're trash. But they're not trash. I mean, they're one of those teams that just shoot me a text. They are one of those teams that I love watching them football now. I hope they beat Dallas up every single year. I hope they split with with Philly, which I think they do. And then the Commanders, whatever. But I'm telling you, man, that's a 12-13 win team, and because they're all bought in, and when you have a team that's clicking and they're buying in, what more can you ask for?
Yeah. Now, listen, I'll say this, and it's kind of funny. I mentioned the Giants a couple weeks ago, and kind of like how we mentioned Seattle. Very similar teams where they completely outdid themselves last year. All the stars aligned, and they totally outdid their win projection, and they had great years.
Mm-hmm.
I told my guest this last week. I said their second best receiver last year was Richie James, and that was pretty much it. Their wide receiving core at one point was Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James, Daniel Bellinger. They have a backup tight end. I'm drawing a blank on his name. That was their core. They added Campbell. Shepard comes back. Waller comes back. Hodgins comes back. Like Wan'Dale Robinson comes back. They got Hyatt. So there you go. There's depth at a position that they did not have last year. I don't think they win the division, but I feel very strongly that they're second because of all the reasons you said. That's the coach of the year. They're one of the best run teams in football. It's only been 1 year. Wink Martindale did a great job. They were banged up last year. If they stay healthy, if Jones can continue to play how he did last year, I think he'll only get better personally because of his weapons and because of Dable. You get another full year with the new system. I like it. It's a hot take for them to win the division, but I think the Eagles will win, but I don't think the Giants are any worse in second place. I mean, Eric, what do you think?
Not to be a dead horse on this, but also, I mean, historically, I mean, with all the data, the analytics, and the video that all these NFL teams have, they're going to change a lot defensive wise on how they're going to play Philadelphia. Especially Jalen Hurts. There's going to be some different schemes this year. I mean, you watch just like. How players play, Lamar now, in the past, and he's going to come back down to earth. Don't get me wrong. I've been a Jalen Hurts guy since he got drafted. I've been riding him, and I think he's a great leader. But they're going to change some schemes there, and I think that from the history between Baltimore and Pittsburgh of seeing Wayne Martindale. Because he's the defensive coordinator. I mean, the guy does an amazing job. I think he's going to make some scheme changes there to where they're going to split with Philly, to kind of take over that division. You watch. I'm telling you, it's coming.
Eric, what do you think about that, bro?
I agree with what you said, Dad. I don't agree with the division part of it. But I do think the Giants will be a playoff team.
They were last year.
Sure.
Right.
Yep. I think they'll do it again and possibly maybe go a little bit higher in the playoffs, but don't go crazy because honestly, I think Philly still rolls that whole NFC and the division. But I like it because out of the draft, and Dad can back me up on this one. Daniel Jones has been my guy. I've been a Daniel Jones fan since day one to the point where I've almost bought a jersey.
Yeah.
I did. So yeah, I love what Daniel Jones is doing, and the signing of Brian Dable was awesome. I mean, he hasn't done any. I mean, he's done a great job. They've they got a pretty good options last year. I mean, they got Darren Waller, they got Paris Campbell, Slayton, Hodgins was surprisingly.
I didn't even mention Slayton. I knew I was drawing a blank. Thank you, Eric. Yes, they bring Slayton back.
They arguably had the best defensive tackle in the league, Dexter Lawrence. Leo's back. Kayvon's in his second year, and he was great. They drafted Deontay Banks, who was second behind Joey Porter. That's another argument. But so yeah, I think they'll be a playoff team. And your guess, I think their name is Christian and Howie. The whole Daniel Jones argument, that was a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, and the last year in the playoff game show what Daniel Jones did in the playoffs in that Viking game was insane. I mean, put the team on his back with, like you said in the one podcast, with like Richie James and Hodgins. I mean, his stats were like, I think he had an over 100 passer rating, no picks, like 3 touchdowns. I mean, he was insane. I mean, nobody even had the Giants coming close to winning that game. And like, I know it was the Vikings defense, but like the Giants, they were big underdogs, I think, that game. And yeah, I think it's nothing but up for the Giants.
Yeah. My points are going to be this. Like my closing points about the Giants is Daniel Jones only threw 15 touchdowns last year. I think it's ridiculous to think that he's going to be somewhat worse than that. I mean, I think he only goes up because of what you said. Second year in the system with Dable, and his wide receiving core added a lot more depth.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the notable defensive players, Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, they come back for a second year with a good system. And again, that's my closing point is that Daniel Jones, it was a team-friendly contract. So for some ever odd reason, I don't think he's going to regress. I think he'll only be better. If he plays bad next year, that's a contract you can easily get out of. And I totally agree. This was a 9-win football team last year, and they only added, they didn't lose. It's a second year with the coach of the year. I love it. I love it. I do. I like it. I like that take, Mark. I like that take, Eric.
And also like the 15 passing TDs thing. Like, I mean, you have to also look. I mean, I think how many rushing yards did he have and touchdowns? I think he had 7, but I don't know about the yards. I mean, he had 22 total touchdowns. I mean, it's not like he's just like a passer. Like he can run the ball. Like he can do it all. I mean, but like what they did in the offseason was they filled every single hole, and I don't see this team going down. I mean, I don't know how they could, but I think they'll be better than Dallas and Commanders and then make the playoffs as a wild card team.
Yeah, again, we're talking about a guy in the Vikings game that threw for 400 yards and had one of the best playoff debuts. Again, with Slayton, Richie James, and Hodgins and Bellinger.
And I like hate the argument like, oh, he was going up against like the Vikings defense. Well, I'm like, before the game, you guys were saying that the Giants aren't going to win.
Right. Keep that same energy. Right.
I'm like, it's not a fair argument because like before the game, you guys were saying, oh, the Vikings are going to kill the Giants. And then once Jones balls out, it's the Vikings defense sucks. And it's just like,
right. Yeah.
And then obviously the Eagles game. I mean, that game was we already knew what was the end result.
It's Super Bowl runner-ups. I mean, it's a like I mean, really. So
yeah.
Well, guys, wow, that was pretty good. That was a pretty long episode. I mean, that was well over an hour. I mean, you guys have any closing thoughts to end the episode with? I've said everything I've wanted to say personally.
Yeah, I think we should do it again, but with my brother in this, huh?
Yeah, there you go. Mark, any closing thoughts here today?
Hey, this was fun. I'm glad that we all can see this do this professional and, actually have a conversation and, hopefully we can start doing this once a week and, really past that. I can't wait for football, but I'm still in baseball mode, and we'll kind of go from there. But I will say on another hot take, I'm so confident in the Giants this year, but this was my long shot. I picked Daniel Jones as the MVP already on my Vegas pick. So
wow. So did you bet it?
Oh yeah. So if I win, drinks on me, boys.
Wow. Wow. That's a long shot hot take. I love it.
Yep.
I love it. No, guys, I think that was a great episode. I don't really have any closing thoughts. I think we got really into some good debates. And again, Mark, I totally agree. This was a great episode. I appreciate you guys for joining. And I think we did very well.
It was great.
Yep. Let's do it again.
So everybody, that was episode 14 of the White Lightning podcast. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler. I was joined here today by Eric Peterson and Mark Peterson. Thank you guys very much.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Have a great weekend, everybody, and take care.